Hello and welcome to Plannercraft. I'm Natalie and I'm going to take you through layering stamps and dies. You will need a set of layering stamps and coordinating dies, a set of layering dies and pigment inks for this technique. We recommend the use of a stamp positioner, which will really help you to get speedy results with your stamp. We'll begin by working with our layering stamp. Working with your stamp positioner, you're going to want to work with your background image. This is usually a solid stamp, and because of this you're going to want to work with pigment inks. Place the stamp on your paper before closing over the lid of your stamp positioner. Press down firmly to make sure the stamp adheres to the surface. As we are working with a solid stamp, you're going to want to carefully ink it up so you do not drag the ink pad, otherwise you will get brush marks. Close the lid of your stamp positioner and apply even pressure over the surface of your stamp. Should you find that areas do not print, simply reapply the ink over the areas that failed to print before reapplying. Because we are working with a stamp positioner, this can be done any number of times to get the perfect print. Once you have the perfect print, you can then rotate your card and move on to your next image. You're going to want to continue to move around your card. Simply re-ink your stamp on each turn, and again we want to make sure that we do not drag the ink pad, it has to be a tap for the best coverage. Apply even amount of pressure, and again if it doesn't stamp again, don't worry, as it is a solid stamp it is prone to picking up any sort of indentations from storage. Once you've done your first 4 stamps, you're then going to want to do each layer in progressively darker tones. So you can see here that I've already done my middle stamp, and I'm finally applying the top stamp using my darkest colour. If you're just beginning with these stamps, really contrasting inks is the way to really help you lay light. Again, you can always stamp again if needs be, so don't panic too much. The important thing is to get your card lined into the corner and your stamp to be aligned properly before inking. The stamp positioner can really help, so don't be afraid to use it. They're really easy to use. You can see here I'm simply aligning the card in, placing the stamp. So I'm just going to work into the corner, and then you can simply close the lid. For this next image I'm doing a one-off using a combination of the colours that I've used to create my previous embellishments. This time, instead of keeping to a colour family, I'm mixing it up a bit. So I'm starting off with my lightest yellow before moving on to the dark yellow on the same stamp, just because we really want that contrast to show. Once I'm happy with my print, I'm then going to clean it with just plain water in a spritzer bottle and a little bit of kitchen towel or microfiber cloth. Next we're going to want to align our next layer. So each set of stamps come with an alignment guide, and I'm going to my next darkest colour. This again is in our yellow series, so this is the darkest yellow colour that we're using for this piece. So again, align the stamp, close the lid and get ready to So again, you can see I'm using a firm tapping motion to get good coverage of ink. This means that when we close the lid, we'll get a nice even print. So again, we're applying same even pressure all over before using the heel of the hand. And again, if we miss any areas, again we'll clean our stamp using just water and kitchen towel or a microfiber cloth. Always make sure you dry your base plate before moving on, and go back to align your final. Following your alignment guide, you want to carefully position your stamp. Again, if you've used contrasting inks, this step is much easier. Press down with a firm pressure, and then we're going to ink with a combination of two different inks. So we're going to go for our middle and darkest shade in our pinky purples. So starting off with the middle shade around the edges of our stamp before going back in with the darkest shade in the centre of our flower. And don't be too worried about contaminating your ink pad at this point, it won't really pick it up. That's why we work from the lighter colour to the darker. And as you can see, when it's stamped, you get a lovely variegated image that has a real sense of depth. The set of stamps had a matching set of dies, and that's what I've used here. You could also use I'll be using low tack stencil tape from Sticks 2 to help me with the die cutting for this element. Simply align your die over the top of your piece so that it's central. Then you're going to position your tape from the one side of your die to the other. You notice I'm really not rubbing down on that central image, as it will still be wet. Run the image through your die cutting machine on its usual sandwich. Using layering dies are different to the dies that we use with our layering stamps. These are actual layered dies that we can cut from a variety of colours. Unfortunately, we can't put a video in for this section, as unfortunately it didn't record properly. However, typically you work from light to dark to medium. So your medium layer is your top layer, and it usually forms the outline. It's a great way of using up. Because the layers are so fine, we're going to want to work with an ultra fine adhesive. In my case, I'm using the 3D PVA from Sticks 2. I find this works really well with the really fine lines of this die. Repeat the same technique. I thought I would show you another die cutting technique that will really help with the low tack. I'm using here some word dies that have separate letters, which can be quite tricky to realign when you have cut them out and you want to put just the letters onto your page rather than cutting them out as a negative. So I'm just using some offcuts here, and I've already put my tape across both dies. I've left plenty of space between my dies so that they don't shift when they're going through the machine. Put them through your machine on your usual die cutting sandwich. You may find when you remove your die from your sandwich that you lose some pieces of your die cut. Simply turn over your die and put the sections back into your die cut before sealing with a piece of tape. Rub the tape along your die cut and turn it over ready to remove the die. Remove the tape and die from the other side carefully. You want to make sure that the background pieces do not shift. Set your tape to one side, ready to then reseal back over the top. You can then remove the other die, before then again sealing down. If any sections do stick, you can use the fine point of an embossing tool just to poke them back through gently. You can then remove backing tape and the background waste, which should leave your letters adhered to your surface. You may need to encourage this slightly with your nail in places. The slower you go for this stage, the better, as you really don't want any of your letters to shift. Because I'm applying my words in two separate places, I'm going to cut my tape in the middle before applying my adhesive to the back of my letters and applying it to my surface. These will be going in my traveller's notebook, so I'm just going to bring that in now and apply the glue before rubbing it down over the surface. Here you can see the letters finally applied. I've literally gone over the top of my background paper and I've added a couple of die cut leaves to the surface to give it some texture. I've also created a pocket on. For the rest of the elements that I'd already cut, I've created a scrapbook layout. You can see the full layout over on our social media. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for our latest projects, as well as visiting our blog, which is www.plannercraft.uk. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel. That's it until next time.